Hey guys, welcome back to another Architecture Real Talk. And architecture for some of us is a career. For some of us, it's a calling. But for me, it's my passion. Anyone who has pursued the career of architecture know that there's one point in their life where they'll go, is it worth getting an architectural license? Is it worth getting NCARB, AIA, all of these various different titles that are associated with architectural field? And for me, my journey happened 12 years ago. I had the opportunity to take 4 or 5 of my licensing exam. I failed 2, I passed 3, and I put everything on a hold because as I was pursuing my career, as they say, life happens. I started giving priority to my family, and all in all, I'm at an impasse where I have all my experience hour taken care of. All I have left is my 6 exams. And should I pursue this? And that's where my dilemma is. So let's look at the pros and cons together. The first thing I want to point out is to have the title architect, to call myself even a channel architect lab. The word architect has a legality. It has a sense of this liability associated with it. Anytime you want to call yourself the architect, anytime you want to stamp any commercial work, any institution work, anything outside of a residence that's more than 5 or 10,000 square feet, depending on your jurisdiction, you need the title of architect. That's the only way you can go around it. Now, another thing that you want to look at, an argument for getting this licensure, is career advancement. A lot of your career advancement when it comes to like going into midfield or higher or professional field require you to actually pursue these various forms of licensures. Any upper manager partner position, they would want you to have this stamping power. They want this sense of professionalism that sets apart our partners or our upper management from those who are graduating from architecture degrees. So if you were to look at it in terms of just moving up in position, you will realize around 10, 15 years into your career that there is a ceiling of project management where you can't cross unless you get your license. Next is your earning potential. On average, a licensed architect will earn around $13,000 more than a person who is not having that credential of having a licensure. Now, regardless of him using it or not, there are certain companies that will pay you extra just because you have that licensure, and they know that there's a possibility that we can use his license in the future. So you do have a higher earning potential just by acquiring this license. And lastly, along with the prestige that comes with the title of the architect, you have this whole vast of club and contractors and things that open up to you, and you are able to do certain things even in engineering fields that you couldn't as an architect intern or an architectural designer if you didn't have the license. For example, you might go into oil and gas and they might need a licensed architect for a very specific factory or industrial expansion. So you have avenues, and there's also prestige that will allow you to open up into various different fields from just that one credential. Now, here comes the hard part. What do we do with the negatives? What are the cons of having your licensure? What are the cons of pursuing this? The first thing right off the bat is the test. There are 6 exams averaging around 3 to 4 hours, each exam costing $250 each, total $1,500. Every retake costs $250. And to top it all off, after you pass your first exam, you have a 5-year window to pass all 5. If not, that first exam is lost. And as that 5-year window goes forward, as for me, I have lost all my ARE 4.0 exams. So architectural registration exam 4.0, all of those are no longer counted. So for me, I'll be starting off from taking all 6 exams, regardless of the fact that I've already paid for 5 exams. So therein lies one big caveat, that it is an expensive financial and a time investment into pursuing an architectural license. Aside from this, one of the things that I want to mention is there's alternative career paths. I'm an educator, And there's other people who have ventured off into furniture making. Other people have ventured off into various different interior design or layouts or stage design from an architectural degree. So not every epitome or every track of architecture career involves you to get a license. But a license is a very specific track that you go on. What the con, which I'm trying to mention, is that there's no way to dictate what you're going to be 15, 20 years from now. So you might acquire your license and you have no idea how to use it or even utilize it. Another thing that also bothers me is there's a shifting in the industry now, that there's a whole movement against licensure. For example, in the national, if you were to look at it nationally, only 13,000 people took the exam. 50% passed. That's another thing. Only 50% of them are passing. So I'm trying to figure out whether it is even worth it, because at this point, when you're shifting in your trends, like a lot of people are resenting these exams, how do you go about convincing the public that, hey, a license in architecture is even worth it? Because a lot of people don't understand the difference between an architectural intern, architectural designer, and the architect. To them, the names are synonymous. So as an identity, we have a crisis because neither the community that have an architectural degree supports this strenuous exam, neither do you have a community that acknowledge the importance of this credential, meaning the society at large do not recognize architect as a title. We're no longer the master builders that we once were acclaimed to be. These are the things that are cons. But another thing that pushes me out of the edge, putting all the pros and cons aside, is what if I get licensed tomorrow and I have my licensure? Then I have to find myself in an architectural firm. I also will not be able to use my license right away because I have to move up into a partner position, or I'll open my own architectural firm. And even then I had a way around it because I hired somebody to do an architectural review and stamp the drawings for me. Well, despite the fact that I have my license, it has more to do with compliance than to do with design. In an architectural office, a person might hire me simply to be able to push projects through permitting, push products through construction, learn how to spec write, or put me in front of a client just to have a mediation or some type of a kickoff meeting. So I'll be able to get these leadership roles, but that doesn't necessarily mean I have design freedom. It's more compliance based than it is design based. So although I become a project lead, I have that role of making sure the project moves along smoothly. Despite me becoming an architect, I will have an increased workload because now with that $13,000 that I'm earning extra, I'm able to now think about my liabilities, my professional use of my license. Me stamping my drawings literally means I'm putting myself open to being a lawsuit. I'm opening myself to having responsibility of the building. So my hours increase, my responsibility increase, my overall stress increases. A licensure might be a dream, but to hold that license, NCARB requires you to renew your license per state, right? The fact that even after I have my license, I have to jump over the hurdles of actually utilizing it. You can end up in a firm as a licensed architect and never get to stamp a drawing in your entire career. You just were able to just use that title just for the sake of having it. So is licensure worth it? Do you want to lead an autonomous life where you lead on a project and you take on the role of pushing that project all the way through the city? Now, that means you're licensing it, you're stamping it, and all of that. If you want to have that as a job role, if that gives you fulfillment, by all means, pursue your license. Are you willing to invest the time and money to further your career? Do you want that professionalism? Do you want that level of mastery to actually devote yourself or commit yourself for an additional 3 to 4 years? Because these experience hours, that's another 4,000, 3,000 something hours that you have to accumulate. It requires around 3 years worth of you logging in your hours, taking these tests, and another 4 to 5 years where you're investing in terms of time and money. If you have that means, go for it. Thirdly, If your firm insists on you getting licensed, or they're pushing you to get licensed because they want you to take on specific commercial work and you want to pursue that specific commercial work as your own, then I would say go for it. And in these circumstances, there are firms that are willing to pay for your licensures if they see the capability or investment in their employee as a potential. And lastly, after exploring some of the alternative path that you have inside architecture, do you see them as narrow and you're not able to see yourself outside the role of an architect? Or you see this as a potential for what you should be? If those are your circumstances, then I would say by all means pursue your license degree. For you guys, please tell me in the comments below, as an educator, should I pursue my license as an architect? Until next time. Follow for more content.